In today's video, we're going to be having a look at a premium robot vacuum by Ecovacs, the Deebot X1 Omni. Check it out. What's going on, guys? I hope you're all doing well. A massive thank you to Ecovacs for sending me this unit of the X1 Omni. When they offered to send me one of these, I instantly said yes. I was really intrigued to actually find out what you get with a grand's worth of robot vacuum. And yes, you did hear correctly, this thing costs £1,000. The X1 Omni's price tag does usually float around that £1,000 mark, but in some cases I have seen it more expensive than £1,000, and in some cases it's been less. So if you are interested in picking one of these up, I would highly recommend shopping about a bit and maybe waiting for some sales. £1,000 is a lot of money for a robot vacuum, and these days £1,000 is a lot of money for pretty much anything, especially with today's standards, with your things like high energy prices, high fuel prices, and just a general increase in the overall living costs. So £1,000 is going to be off-putting to a lot of people. This video isn't going to be a typical review for a robot vacuum. Instead, what I'm going to do is just focus on those points that I think add to the robot's overall value and probably increase the overall price of it. So if you are interested in finding out what you're actually going to get for £1,000, keep watching and let me know at the end if you think this thing is worth £1,000. Let's get the obvious stuff out of the way. After all, this thing is a robot vacuum, so it can do the traditional robot vacuum things that you'd expect a robot vacuum to do. So it can clean the floor, it can detect the levels of floor, so whether it's carpet or whether it's a hardwood floor, and it will adjust its suction power based on the type of material it's on. So if it's on carpet, it's going to suck more, and if it's on hardwood floor, it's going to be a bit less. In addition to those traditional features, this robot also has some other features that you can find on cheaper robot vacuums, things like the ability to self-empty, detachable mop heads, configurable obstacle avoidance, smart home integration, and a few other little things. Okay, so let's actually talk about the features of this robot that make it unique, and the features that actually differentiate it from those other robots, and probably go towards its premium price tag. For me personally, I think there's 5 features that do this. The first one is the overall look and feel of the robot, so its actual style, the way it's been designed. We've then got the robot's enhanced dock, its mopping feature set and functionality, its navigation system, and also its voice assistant. These are all features that I feel Ecovacs have tried to do differently compared to its competitors in order to give it that uniqueness. And we'll start with the first one, which is the robot's style. The X1 Omni features this two-tone metallic colour scheme which runs throughout both the robot and its dock, and this design was actually curated by YIKO Design, which is why the robot has this premium and futuristic feel to it. I'd actually go as far as saying this is the best looking robot vacuum I've ever seen. The colour scheme and the theme that it has makes it fit in pretty much any room you put it in, and it doesn't look or feel cheap, kind of like the plasticky or all-white robots that you can find. Carrying on then, we've got what I'd consider an enhanced docking station, and the reason that I'm calling this thing enhanced is because it can just do a lot more than I've seen other robots do with a docking station. The docking station for this robot is massive, and I mean massive. As well as being able to charge the robot after every clean, this docking station also packs a couple of extra features. It's able to self-empty the robot, and it does this by sucking out all the dirt and bits of grime from within the robot's dustbin and putting it straight into a dust bag that's cleverly concealed inside of a pull-out drawer. We already established that the self-emptying feature isn't something that's brand new, but what is brand new, or at least brand new for me, is the self-filling feature. So inside of the robot's dock, there's 2 water tanks, one for clean water and one for dirty water, and this water will actually automatically pass down to the robot's mops to actually allow the mops to start, and it will actually also clean them, so you don't even have to do that yourself. And that's not even everything that the docking station can do. It's actually got an inbuilt dryer, so after the mop heads have been cleaned, the mop heads will be dried, and the benefits to this is they're not going to sit there stinking, and that drying process is actually also going to help kill any bacteria that are clinging to the mop heads. Inside of the docking station, in between those 2 water tanks, there's actually a clever bit of storage that houses a brush for cleaning the bottom of the robot, and also some spare mop heads in case you need to change those out. Another nice feature that the dock has is along the top there's some little touch buttons, and these touch buttons allow you to perform different actions on the robot, whether that's returning to the dock, starting a clean, or maybe just recycling the water within the base of the dock. Carrying on then, I've mentioned it, so let's actually talk about it a little bit more, but it's the mopping functionality of the robot. Mopping functionality on robot vacuums is notoriously bad, and I think it's because manufacturers usually think about this as an afterthought or maybe just as an additional selling point to tack on. The usual style of mops that you get with robot vacuums are those clip-on attachments or the little bits of material that you just stick onto the bottom of the robot, and basically they just get dragged around the floor, and they do a job, but whether it's a good job is a different question. But this is where the X1 Omni is different because the whole mopping feature set has actually been thought about and they actually work very well. The mopping functionality on the X1 Omni is known as the Osmo 2.0 Turbo, and it features dual spinning mop heads that can spin at 180 RPM and have a downward pressure of 6 newtons. And if you compare this to some of those ones where it's just a bit of material being dragged along the floor, it does an astonishingly good job. When you couple that mopping feature set with the ability to actually self-dry and self-clean the mop heads, you end up with a mopping feature set that is actually worthwhile using, and it's one that I actually do make use of within my own home. This next one is one that I think a lot of people are going to be divided on, and it's the X1's navigation and obstacle avoidance features and the RGBD sensors. On the front of the X1 you'll find Ecovacs' trademarked AI-VI RGB camera and also their True Detect 3D sensors. And when you combine these two things, the RGB camera and the 3D sensors, you get RGBD. And this RGBD, combined with lots of fancy algorithms and lots of training data on human shapes and object recognition, is what Ecovacs uses as their navigation system. The reason that I said this is going to be a divide with some people is because that camera can actually be used as a live video camera. So you can use the camera on the front to actually drive the robot around your house yourself, or you can use it to drive up to somebody and do two-way communication. And some people just don't want a camera on a little robot in their house. Regardless of the whole camera thing, Ecovacs have done something that I've not seen on a robot vacuum before, but they actually use that technology and the cameras and all the crazy sensors to actually build up a 3D map of your home. Usually you'd have a 2D map where you can actually see the different rooms that the robot's been able to identify, and you can do things like map out a room and say go to this set room or go to this set spot. But with this 3D technology and the 3D maps, it can actually map out bits of furniture within your house, and you can do clever things like say, go and clean under the bed, or go and clean behind the sofa. The 3D map is made exactly how you'd make a normal map for a robot. The robot goes around your house doing a clean and it will just map things out, and objects it can detect and recognise, it will actually place them in a 3D space. So things like your sofa or kitchen table will just appear in the map. I think this is a really innovative feature and it's something that I haven't seen on any of the robot vacuums I've tested. It's still got a way to go, I think, because there has been a few issues that I've experienced with it, but Ecovacs are constantly updating it, and they have recently just brought out a new update that's added a whole bunch more objects that can be recognised and placed into your 3D space. If when your robot builds its map, it doesn't actually correctly identify one of your objects, you can actually manually place objects in the 3D space so that the robot knows about them, or it can actually reference whatever you've put there, which is a nice feature to have. On some of the earlier maps that I made, it did actually correctly map some things like my kitchen table and my sofa, but it randomly placed a bed in a couple of different spots where there's obviously no bed. Being able to say go to the kitchen and clean the kitchen is really cool, but being able to actually pinpoint an area or pinpoint an object and say go and clean next to this thing or behind this thing is even cooler. The final unique feature that I think you get with the X1 is Ecovacs' inbuilt voice assistant. Ecovacs have created their own voice assistant called YIKO, and YIKO allows you to control the robot with your voice, and using YIKO you get a lot more functionality and control over it than you do with connecting it to Amazon or to Google. I quite like the whole concept of YIKO, the fact that you've got a voice assistant that travels around with the robot, so if it's in any room that you don't have a voice assistant like your Amazon Echoes or Googles, you can still actually communicate with the robot and issue it voice commands. Okay YIKO?
I'm here.
Start cleaning.
Start mopping. Please make sure there is sufficient water in the clean water tank.
While the concept and feature set of YIKO is good and it's very promising, in practical use it's just not great. Currently I think it's being let down by the microphone array that it's using, and it can't compete with things like your Amazon Echo and Google Homes. More often than not, YIKO seems to have a hard time with detecting its wake word, and this only gets worse when you're using the vacuum in a high-powered mode, as YIKO then has to filter out the vacuum noise as well as your general house noise, and then also filter out your voice. Okay YIKO? Okay, YIKO. Okay, YIKO. Okay, YIKO. Stop cleaning.
Task complete.
When YIKO detects its wake word, there is a short delay before its prompt, but when you hear its prompt, you can ask your question, and then again there's another short delay before it responds. So if you ask it its battery level, it will wait a couple of seconds and then it will give you the answer. I did initially wonder why Ecovacs hadn't just opted to use Amazon or Google's voice assistants and just integrate them straight into the robot, but I think the actual reason for this is by building their own, they can actually use their own feature set and include their own voice commands, whereas if they used Amazon or Google's ones, they're going to be limited to what the actual platforms give you, and those limitations are going to be what you actually get using the Amazon or Google integrations. I think the other reason is by giving it its own voice assistant, you're not going to trigger lots of different things around your house by issuing a command with your voice directly to the robot. Although YIKO's not quite there yet, it's still great to see Ecovacs trying to innovate and to include these features that its competitors just aren't doing. And I think YIKO will expand over time, and I think it will actually quite expand rapidly, because if you think about it, it only needs to know about your vacuum. You don't need to ask it who won the football last night or other random questions that aren't to do with your vacuum. So those are 5 features that I think are unique to this robot and add towards its premiumness. But before we wrap this up, I'm just going to quickly touch on my personal experience with using this robot for the last few weeks. Over the last few weeks, the X1 Omni's been my daily driver for cleaning the house. It's been great for staying on top of dog hair, staying on top of kid mess, and just general bits of dust, dirt, and other bits of things that just get dragged into the house. Thanks to its 5000 PA of suction, the pickup on the robot does an excellent job of picking up even the smallest bits of dirt and dust, and after a couple of laps around a room, the room is usually spotless. Navigation wise, I've not really run into any issues with the robot getting lost or stuck. I have had a couple of issues recently where the robot, if it had its mopping heads on, it wouldn't correctly line up with the dock, so it would take it a few times to actually get onto the dock properly. And also recently I've changed the rug in the front room, and the robot seems to only like to get onto the rug from either end of the rug, and it won't climb onto it from the side. For me, the mopping functionality on this robot actually makes the mopping features worthwhile using. Compared to ones that I've previously mentioned where they just get dragged along the floor, this actually does a decent job of mopping and is worthwhile using as a mop. If you're wondering if you can get this robot into Home Assistant, the answer is yes. For the last few weeks, I've not really been using the Ecovacs app, and instead I've been using a custom integration which is available on Hacks called Deebot for Home Assistant. And this allows you to pretty much do everything that you can do with the app, even visualize the map, and you can control the robot directly with Home Assistant, and that way you can link up the robot with your various scripts and automations and have the robot react to things like your presence. So if you want the robot to clean while you're not home and then want it to go back to its dock when you do get home, you can do things like that. Using Home Assistant, you can also do some other creative things like placing wireless buttons in rooms. That way, if you press the button in that room, the robot will go to that room, clean it, and then go back to its dock. Unfortunately, the X1 Omni is cloud dependent, so you need an active internet connection in order to make use of its full feature set. If you don't have an internet connection, you can only make use of a very basic feature set. In the future, it would be nice to see Ecovacs make everything local. That way, if you don't have an internet connection or you've got a bit of a flaky connection, you're still going to maintain full functionality over your robot with your various smart home platforms or even just with the Ecovacs app. And Ecovacs, if you do happen to watch the video and you are working on some form of local control, it'd be cool to see you actually expand that out to your voice assistant too. That way you've got an offline voice assistant and you can use your voice to also control the robot without an internet connection. And there we go guys, that's been a little look at some of the features that I consider extra features and functionality that you don't get with other robots. Let me know in the comments below if you think those features give this robot that high price tag, or if any of those features are worthwhile to you. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to drop me a like, and if you're not already, hit that subscribe button and ding dong the notification bell. You'll then be alerted to any future video that I do. As always, a massive thank you to these awesome dudes. These awesome dudes are my Patreons, and if you're interested in helping support my channel, which in turn allows me to create videos like this, then you'll find a link to my Patreon in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.